It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but he returns Sunday night, Monday morning. Good morning, everyone. I guess there is some news out there. There may be some news out there to discuss. But this is the one that really caught my eye. All right, before we get to the big stories, I know that is not fat shaming to Chris Christie. You want to make sure everybody understands that. This is my favorite headline of the day. Liberal women go viral on TikTok for saying it's hard to find any masculine man who is not conservative. We'll get to that story just a little bit later on in the show. All right, man. Well, let me just tell you this. Right before I went to sleep, I'm just doing the final search. This has to be between 4 and 5. And I'm making sure I go to sleep early because knowing Eric wasn't going to be in, I need to make sure I get my sleep. So it's like, okay, last search of the news. And I see, oh my gosh, it is Burisma. And I'd said it on yesterday's show. I said, could you imagine if this document, this Biden bribe document, shows that the business person in Ukraine was Burisma? That blows everything out of the water. And there it is. It's Burisma. And so immediately, Eric's in Gillette, Wyoming, doing marketing and a whole bunch of other stuff for the show. So I just said, he's probably busy. He won't respond to me. And I just said, I wish you were in tonight. I wish you were in. And he got back to me and said, yeah. So then, I had seen it and I said, okay, I can update myself later on. I just can't get into the minutia of it because I got to go to sleep. Anybody who works this shift understands it. Because it's not just normally, as I've said before, I'm the kind of person I don't like sleep. I lust sleep. But when you work this shift, it is an absolute necessity. You have to sleep. And so it's like, okay, I got to go to sleep. So when I wake up, boom, there it is. Trump is going to be charged. That he first came out and said he got the call, and then you had media come out with source stories talking about what the charges could be. Or what the charges could be or might be, or the sources are telling them they will be, but everything we've seen so far is a source story. So I'm like, okay, where do I go? Where do I go to get the most accurate information on a source story about the possibilities of what Trump might be charged with based on the source stories? And of course, it goes right to Andrew McCarthy, Fox News contributor. Writes for National Review, and I think he also, New York Post, whatever, writes for a bunch of different places. He wrote the book, Ball of Collusion, that really early on dissected the whole Trump-Russia collusion situation. He was one of the first, with that book to say it's bogus, what was going on. And he's really good, being a former U.S. attorney, he's really good at disseminating the legal things. And we'll get to the political thing. Well, in fact, let's get to the political things right now before we even get to anywhere else, because I think you've had probably not Asa Hutchinson. He came out and said that Trump should drop out of the race now. He said that. Who was it? Was it Charlie Kirk who said all the rest of the candidates now should drop out and put their support behind Trump because of this? I doubt that's going to happen. But Vivek Ramaswamy, who was running, here's what he had to say yesterday when he found out about the fact that Trump is going to be indicted.
I never thought we'd see the day when a party in power, a U.S. president, has a Department of Justice under him that arrests his lead rival during an election, in the middle of an election. Yet here we are. We have two standards of justice. One for BLM rioters and Antifa, another one for peaceful January 6th protesters. One for Chelsea Manning, another one for Julian Assange. Guess what? Now you have one for Joe Biden, who violates the same laws about document retention and classified documents, and then one for President Trump. And actually, there's deep questions, legal questions, that's for the courts, about declassification power, about whether documents are overclassified, but that's not the point. The point today is that we, the people, decide who actually governs in this country, not some administrative police state. And I am sorry, we do not live in some banana republic where the party in power gets to use its power to arrest political opponents. And believe me, it would be easier for me if Donald Trump were not in this race. But this is not about politics to me. This is about principle. I stand on the side of principle, and I'm committing to say that if I am elected as your next president on January 20th, 2025, I will pardon not just President Trump, but every victim of a politically motivated prosecution.
There you go. Ramaswamy yesterday after hearing it. Let's get, and I think he's the only one that said he would pardon him, but I believe everyone I'd seen except Hutchinson came out and said it's just an abomination as to what's going on in two-tier justice, everything that we've been talking about. But what about the legal things so far? So Andrew McCarthy had this, and he writes, reporting from the Washington Post and New York Times indicates that Trump has been indicted on 7 felony counts. The indictment obtained by special counsel Jack Smith from a federal grand jury in Miami is still under seal. So the reports are based on leaks from people said to be knowledgeable, because we haven't heard anything, so everything is basically a leak. It's a source. He goes, the most notable thing I've seen is that in charging Trump with the Espionage Act offense, prosecutors are relying on a provision that criminalizes willful violations of the rules that government officials are required to follow in handling national defense intelligence. This seems like an obvious effort to distinguish Trump's alleged crime from President Biden's mishandling of classified documents, which the White House and media Democratic complex have described as inadvertent, the result mainly of sloppy staff work, not willfulness. No one who has been following our analysis will be surprised to hear that Trump is reportedly charged with conspiracy to obstruct justice. What intrigues me, and this is really an interesting point, what intrigues me about that allegation is it takes two to tango. You can't conspire alone. To have conspired to obstruct justice, prosecutors would have to prove that Trump had at least one co-conspirator who knowingly agreed to obstruct the government's investigation. At this point, it is not clear with whom Smith alleges Trump conspired. When the indictment is made public, perhaps it will shed light on that question. Trump is also said to be charged with making false statements. As I previously related, one theory the special counsel appears to be pressing is that Trump is responsible for a false sworn statement his lawyers conveyed to the FBI for transmission to the grand jury on June 3rd, 2022. At that time, lawyers represented that a thorough search of Mar-a-Lago had been conducted and that the 38 documents bearing classified markings that they were surrendering that day were the only ones in Trump's possession. After that point, the government continued to investigate and developed evidence that Trump was still hoarding documents marked classified. As a result, prosecutors sought and obtained a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago on August 5th, 2022. 3 days later, the FBI searched the premises and seized over 100 documents with classification markings, many of them found in Trump's private office. Under the federal aiding and abetting statute, a principal is responsible for criminal acts of his agents, including false statements, if he caused, counseled, or commanded their commission. Most interesting, though, are reports that Trump is charged with willfully retaining national defense information. We cannot be sure until we've seen the indictment, but this appears to refer to subsection D of the Espionage Act of the Federal Criminal Code, that says whoever lawfully having possession of, access to, control of, or being entrusted with any document relating to the national defense or information relating to the national defense, which information the possessor has reason to believe could be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation, willfully retains the same and fails to deliver it on demand to the officer or employee of the United States entitled to receive it, is guilty of the crime punishable by up to 10 years imprisonment. Section D sets forth a more serious offense than the provision that usually applies to government officials who mishandle classified information or other national defense intelligence. That possession, subsection F, makes it a crime for officials trusted with national defense intelligence to exhibit gross negligence in mishandling it by removing it from safekeeping, by retaining it in an unauthorized place, by exposing it to an unauthorized person, or to be allowing it to be lost, stolen, or destroyed. Subsection F would obviously be applicable to the misconduct of Biden, who was entrusted with classified information and at a minimum caused it to be removed from safekeeping and stored it in unauthorized locations. Obviously, if Trump were charged with the violation of subsection F, it would raise the question of why Biden has also not been charged with that offense. The strategy of the Biden administration and its special counsel then seems to be to allege that Trump committed a willful offense that puts him in a different, more egregious category than Biden's conduct, and two, to pretend in connection with Biden, as the Obama-Biden Justice Department pretended in connection with the Hillary email scandal, that it is not a felony for government officials to be grossly negligent in mishandling classified information, to pretend that willfulness or some intent to harm the United States is an essential element of that offense. In any event, these are preliminary observations based on media reporting. We'll have a better read when the indictment is made public. Because, as we have said before, the problem is a two-tiered justice is what Pence did, what Biden did, what Trump did, what Hillary did, is all breaking the law. All of it's breaking the law, and that's what he's saying here. He's saying, but they're trying to say, but Trump did this differently. Here's the point, though, that we brought up on yesterday's show. Hillary had intent. When Hillary put the server in her home and put it outside of the secure network, she did it to avoid the Freedom of Information Act. She didn't want the government to see, as Secretary of State, what she was doing. Now, number one, she has no authority to declassify anything anywhere. She was Secretary of State, not President of the United States. And so, that at that particular point, the intent, the actual intent was to commit a criminal act. I'm going outside the system so government cannot monitor me and have copies of the communications that I do in my official position of Secretary of State. That's against the law. And so attempting to evade the Freedom of Information Act, that would have been one charge against Hillary Clinton. The second one would have been the Espionage Act, as we just pointed out there, for having the server in her home and knowing that top secrets would be exposed at that point. And she did it in order to avoid the Freedom of Information Act. Why? Some say it's because she was doing Clinton Foundation stuff and didn't want people to see it. But the fact is, by doing it, it was absolutely premeditated that she did not want the government to see what she was doing and be able to store it. She did not want to be accountable. So she committed an Espionage Act violation to cover up the fact that she wished to commit another crime. And that's how we always covered that. Trump, you can't find the criminal intent. Where's the criminal intent? Where's the criminal intent? Now, I will say this, that where we saw this is the CNN story that came out last week that said Trump is on, I don't know, they've got a recording of him. I don't know if it's video, I don't know if it's audio, but came out where he is discussing with others after he is president, where he is discussing things that are classified. That's a classified document on a possible attack of Iran before he left office. And he was discussing that information. Now, Trump claims, I declassified everything when I left. What is the process of that? That still has not been disseminated. What is the process of doing that, of declassifying information? That still has not been made clear. Now, Trump early on made a stupid statement and said, I can declassify just in my mind. I believe that would not hold any water. If I just in my mind say it's declassified, it's declassified. No, you've got to make some type of announcement that I'm declassifying this so everybody down the line knows it. I think he hurt himself by stating that. But what was his intent? What law was he trying to break? If you look, for example, at the Biden situation, hang on, we got to take a break. We'll come back. There's so much on my mind, I wasn't looking at the clock. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. Retreads have a reputation for causing that rubber debris or gators found on the sides of the highway. However, studies show that 68% of the tire debris collected on the highway comes from new tires, not retreads. The reality is that retreads will wear at the same rate as new tires if you don't properly maintain them. Retreads are still a major investment and require engaged maintenance practices. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley. He has the morning off, but he is back Sunday night, Monday morning. I'm Gary McNamara, and I'm here with you, continuing analyzing and making a comparison here. Biden, for example, had, as we know, classified documents in a number of different places. The real problem for Biden, and the real problem that's going to happen is, Trump indicted. If Biden is not indicted, the question will be, wait a minute, there were top secret documents, classified documents at his house that were separated outside of the folders, which means they weren't packaged in some way. And understand, he was vice president. He did not have the ability to classify, and they found documents as far back as, I believe, 1974, classified documents of when he was a senator. Now, James Comer had come out a couple of months ago and said one of the documents that were found at the house that were separate, not in the file, was on Ukraine. And his suspicion was at that point that document was part of deals done with Ukraine, which would then add a criminal element to it at that point. With Trump, you can't look. Number one, he was president, has the ability to declassify. What is the correct procedure to do that? That still hasn't been clarified. It will be, I believe, in a trial. We'll talk more coming up.
Hi, I'm Eric Harley. Join me today through Saturday, June 10th, for the 41st annual Shell Rotella Super Rigs at Camplex in Gillette, Wyoming. All the details are at redeyeradioshow.com.
And I'm Gary McNamara. You know where Eric is. He just told you. He returns for a Sunday night, Monday morning show, and I can't wait for that. Normally, we don't text a lot because we spend so much time together here every day, but I had to yesterday when I saw the Burisma thing, which we'll get to here in a little bit. We'll get to the whole Biden bribe document. By the way, that's going to blow everything out of the water. And we'll get to the politics of all this with Trump and Biden coming up here in a little bit. But just looking at, what happened yesterday concerning former President Donald Trump coming out and saying that he has been informed he has been indicted and will be charged next Tuesday. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. This has been going on for 7 years. They can't stop, because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well. If they would devote their energies to honesty and integrity, would be a lot better for our country. They could do a lot better. They could do a lot of great things. But when you look at what's happened to our country in the last 3 years, we were energy independent. We had a strong military that wasn't woke. We were doing so well. We were respected all over the world. Got the biggest tax cuts in history, biggest regulation cuts in history. And what do? You have a president where an election was taken, got more votes than any sitting president in history by far, never anything even close. And they come after me because now we're leading in the polls again by a lot, against Biden and against the Republicans by a lot. But we're leading against Biden by a lot, a tremendous amount. And we went up to a level that they figure the way they're going to stop us is by using what's called warfare. And that's what it is. This is warfare for the law. And we can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. Our country is going to hell. And they come after Donald Trump, weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI. We can't let this continue to go on because it's ripping our country to shreds. We have such big problems, and this shouldn't be one of them. It's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax, just like Russia, just like the fake dossier was a hoax. You saw the Durham report. You saw the Mueller report. It was all a big hoax. You had 2 impeachments, and they lost, and we won. And we had tremendous support. But that was a hoax and a scam. And now they're doing it again. It's just a continuation, 7 years, even after I'm out. But it's called election interference. They're trying to destroy a reputation so they can win an election. That's just as bad as doing any of the other things that have been done over the last number of years, and especially during the 2020 election. So I just want to tell you, I'm an innocent man. I did nothing wrong. And we will fight this out just like we've been fighting for 7 years. It would be wonderful if we could devote our full time to making America great again. And that's exactly what we did. But now, again, our country is in decline. We're a failing nation. And this is what they do. I'm an innocent man. We will prove that again. 7 years of proving it. And here we go again. Very unfair. But that's the way it is. I just want to thank everybody. We are doing something very special for our country. We're putting America first. I always put America first. And that's why we were in a position. Unfortunately, that position is no longer valid because they've done such a poor job. But we're in a position where we're going to make America great again. I'm innocent, and we will prove that very, very soundly and hopefully very quickly. Thank you.
The former president yesterday, he's the one that actually came out and, he's the one, I think, on True Social that let everybody know that, they have informed me that I have been indicted. Going through, again, the legalities of it, by the law that exists, all of them, Hillary Clinton, Pence, Biden, and even Trump, in the technical for Trump, technically broke the law. You're not allowed to have it, but they don't prosecute that because when you're a president of the United States, and he moved out of the White House very quickly. Of course, there were going to be documents that he had. The vice president should never have those type of documents that are in a file that leave their place. Pence shouldn't have had it. Biden shouldn't have had it. Remember, he was vice president, and he was a senator when all this happened. And, of course, Hillary Clinton, we know that why she did what she did, that it was premeditated. And remember, not only did Hillary do that, but she smashed phones. She smashed phones. She erased emails. The obstruction of justice, don't know what they're looking at now. You had Andrew McCarthy make a guess at it, that it was his lawyer stating, well, that's all we have. Well, if that's obstruction of justice and Hillary's isn't, there's no way you can convince a significant portion of America, which probably would be a majority of Americans if you take Republicans and independents, that look at it and say, yeah, we live in a two-tier justice system. And so, where it goes from here, again, we have to wait to see what the actual charges are next week. But I do believe that how they're, as Andrew McCarthy said, the willfulness to have and keep the documents they claim is the different level, even though by law it's not, but that's a different level that politically they're going to use in order to say Trump is separate from a Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. And you say, well, how do you prove that? And that's where we said, if that video exists and if the video that CNN came out with exists, and nobody's denying it, not even the Trump campaign, that it doesn't exist, I believe that's what they're going to use to separate it, because then they have Trump on tape discuss. And I don't know what's on the tape. I don't know whether he says, yeah, this is classified, because what they're saying is that by what he said in there, it's obvious they're still classified, and he said he declassified it. The other point is going to be, and this will be probably determined, because whatever happens in this trial, odds are it's going to the Supreme Court of the United States. And so it's because one of the biggest things is, what is the definition of declassifying? How does the president do it? When does it become declassified? Did the president tell anybody? The other thing is, too, where they're saying conspiracy, as Andrew McCarthy says, conspiracy, there's another person that knew this was going on. Who was that other person that knew that this was going on? If they don't present another person, they don't have a case. But when you look at the Democrats, and when you look at instances which would be Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, if Trump is indicted, Hillary Clinton should have been indicted, because we know that what she did was premeditated, and it was to commit another crime. The crime that she committed of putting the server in her house of the Espionage Act was done to avoid the Freedom of Information Act. We know it. Every single administration, there is an administration out there that hasn't brought, after they're done with the White House, find that they have classified information. Happens in every one. Then they negotiate, well, is it classified, is it not? And then they hand it back. But when you get to it, because the Department of Justice is trying to make the case that willfulness is what makes this a crime worth charging, and I would look at it and say, in the political world, because that's how this is going to be judged. In the political world, you're saying, okay, but what was his intent? Was there an intent of criminal wrongdoing here? If the Justice Department is going to play that game and say, well, they've all broke the law, but Trump is higher because there was a willfulness because of this tape, and let's say the tape does exist, where he makes it clear that he knows it's classified, well, still, what was the intent? Was the intent, because if you look at Hillary, the intent was to commit a criminal act, and nobody ever thought of charging her. No Democrat said she ought to be charged, yet everybody knew her intent was to commit another criminal act. In Trump, what is the intent to commit a political act? Since the Department of Justice is playing this game that willfulness is what makes it a chargeable offense, when everybody broke the law, Pence broke the law, Biden broke the law, Hillary broke the law, and Trump broke the law. Well, okay, why did they do it? What was the intent? If you're not going to charge everybody, then what is the legal standard? Or are you making up the legal standard as you go along in order to have a two-tier system of justice, to go after your political enemies and create election interference? So that's where we stand right now here on this case. We have a couple of interesting years coming up, because who knows when this would even come to trial. Do they want this hanging over him? It'll be interesting to see how many Republican candidates come out and just say, well, from what we can see right now, especially after the charges next week, and you analyze what the charges are, and then what the evidence is, it would be interesting to see how many of the Republican candidates come out and just say, oh, okay, if we become president, we will pardon Trump. And that way you take it off the table. We will pardon Trump at that point. Now, that could be used against you. But again, right now, I don't see. If you were to ask me, do you believe it's a two-tier system of justice, and is this evidence of it? Absolutely. But the other thing is, you can't trust the Department of Justice. You can't trust the FBI. We've seen everything that's been going on. You can't trust them at all. Think about this with the whole impeachment one on Ukraine. The FBI knew that there was the allegation that Biden was dirty, that never was brought up by anybody, that was never leaked. They were saying, well, Trump had nothing there. Trump was committing election interference, when we now know that the FBI had a document and an investigation going on. Since 2017, they were looking at it, and the allegation from one of their most trusted sources, informants, was that Biden took a bribe from Ukraine. Remember, impeachment, when that happened in 2019, the FBI was well aware of that, and it never came out. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I am Gary McNamara. Eric has a morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. Well, it's going to be a zoo next week. Every week seems to be a zoo. Just insanity going on. We'll have more comment. We'll hear from Senator Tim Scott, also a Republican candidate for president, on the upcoming Trump indictment. And I said it yesterday when we were talking about the fact that the document on the Biden bribe that was going to be made available to everybody on the House Oversight Committee. And then yesterday when it came out that the business person who Biden was dealing with was a Burisma executive. I mean, that is just... And I said yesterday, I go, well, what a bombshell that would be. And I sort of was taken back today. I'm like, oh, my God. Democrats may sit there and think politically, oh, we've got Trump. You may think they're thinking that way, but right now they're going, oh, my God, this thing with Biden has just got to the point of just he can't be running anymore. And we had a discussion here in our pre-show meeting a little bit because when I saw that Gavin Newsom came out yesterday and said, we need the 28th Amendment to update the Second Amendment, I first went, oh, is he running again? Is he running? Have they finally looked and go, okay, we got to go to Newsom because this is just getting out of control. Then I heard he was on Fox News yesterday, and I went, oh, he's running again. That more on the way. 866-90 Red Eye.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. And if you can't listen live overnight, you can listen when and where you choose. Big news day yesterday. Just looking for different commentary from the presidential candidates yesterday on the Republican side, including involving the upcoming indictment of Donald Trump by the special counsel on classified documents. Here is Tim Scott yesterday, Senator Tim Scott, talking about it.
Let's look at what's happening to an American. More important than Republicans or Democrats, red or blue, black or white, is this notion that our nation is the greatest nation on earth because Lady Justice has a blindfold on. That means that Republicans are not hunted and Democrats are not protected. It means that we look at every single case based on the evidence. And in America, every single person is presumed innocent, not guilty. And what we've seen over the last several years is the weaponization of the Department of Justice against the former president. You don't have to be a Republican to see injustice and want to fix it. You don't have to be a Democrat to see injustice and want to fix it. You just have to be an American and stand up for the right thing. I don't care whether you're on my party or not in my party. I don't care whether you look like me or not. The one thing that makes America the city on the hill is confidence in our justice system. And today, what we see is a justice system where the scales are weighted. That seems to be the outcome of where we are today. As President of the United States, I would purge all of the injustices and impurities in our system so that every American can have confidence that they will be seen by the Lady of Justice with a blindfold on. That is what we need in this nation, not more politicizing of the issues.
Yeah. Tim Scott, yesterday, really didn't get to the specifics of this particular case, but in general, what Republicans will be promoting is a two-tier system of justice. And there's so much to look at here when you combine both the upcoming indictment of Trump and the Biden bribe document yesterday, where it came out that it was Burisma, because that actually added to the two-tier system of justice that you can look at that has been accepted in this country for the last couple of years. You look, for example, at when you think about the Trump-Russia collusion that was completely made up, and it went on for 3 years, and Democrats lied over and over and over and over again. We talk about Adam Schiff and his lies, how he lied to the American public. Remember, he was in charge in the House of overseeing America's top secrets and intelligence agencies. He was the top person for oversight when he was second in that because he was in the minority party during the whole Russia collusion thing. For the first couple of years, he lied consistently about what the intelligence actually said. There was no intelligence that Trump colluded with the Russians. He told the American public there was. He lied to the American public. Hillary Clinton set up Donald Trump. There's no debate on that anymore. Everybody knows it. That Trump went through hell for the vast majority of his presidency based on a lie. Based on a lie created by the opposition party and then sold to the media and law enforcement that willingly went along with the lie for years, not a month, years. And it was all a setup by the Hillary campaign. And law enforcement went along with it. And they knew there was no credibility to it. That's where you get the weaponization of the federal government. That it's not about justice. When you now look at impeachment number one, we've talked about impeachment number two. Both were bogus, but just focusing on number one here. What came out yesterday about the Biden bribe? A document that exists out there. Everyone knows that money flowed. There is no debate. Money flowed to the Biden family. Millions upon millions of dollars went to the Biden family. We know that. We know. The Democrats they've run out of excuses. The one excuse was, well, Trump does business. Well, yeah, they have a legit business. No one can tell you what business the Bidens are in. And by the way, that should be a question. You know, I saw the question. Yeah, we'll have the audio coming up. The question that was asked to, Biden, have you sold out the country? He said, "Show me where the money is." That was his first remark. It's the wrong question. Not that you can't ask that as a follow-up question. The first question I asked is, it's obvious you lied when you said you didn't know about your son's business dealings because this evidence exists, this evidence exists, this evidence exists. Ask him that question. And then the follow-up can be, have you sold out the country with the information, coming, because that was how the question was put. I know reporters like to get the, that kind of question, but the question you should be asking is the one that he can't answer. Because that's where it started. He said, I know nothing about my son's foreign business dealings. Everyone knows. Every Democrat listening right now knows that's a lie. That's why the public looks at it. That's where it began, where the public said, okay, he's lying. Why would he lie? Because his son's business dealings only had to do with influence peddling. It was the same thing that the argument that existed. Well, Hunter Biden did it. It doesn't touch the president, and the president hasn't been touched by this. It's only Hunter doing wrong. Well, what did Hunter do wrong? If Hunter was in his own business, whatsoever, why do you believe Hunter did something wrong? Well, what was Hunter's business? What business was he in? And so when you get to the minutia and start asking the correct questions, that's the problem. But when it came out yesterday, there's a couple of things here. First, when we talk about the weaponization of government, it's interesting because the Democrats started it with impeachment number one. And as we said, impeachment number one destroyed the credibility of impeachments now for all time. Impeachment doesn't mean anything. Why? Because they used it in an unserious manner. Trump was impeached the first time because he asked Zelensky, you need to investigate, you need to investigate what the Bidens were doing. Now, we knew at that point that the Obama State Department was extremely concerned. We knew that Hunter Biden served on the board of Burisma without any experience whatsoever in natural gas and got the job after Biden became the point man for the Obama administration in Ukraine. The State Department, the Obama State Department, was completely uncomfortable. As we said, well, no, there is a legit reason based on the fact that the Obama administration was worried about it, and there were legit questions. Now, as we've seen the money that has flown through to the Biden administration, and now that this document is out, and we found out yesterday that the document, the business person that apparently allegedly gave the $5 million bribe to Biden was from Burisma. That blows out of the water the first impeachment. And Eric and I always ask this question. Did they know? Did somebody in the White House know this was getting too close to what they were doing? And so it's like we need to go after Trump to take any discussion away from possibly Biden doing anything wrong. And is that why they really didn't allow the Republicans to call witnesses? Remember that? Remember Nancy Pelosi was, and I think Gerald Nadler also was part of it, saying we can't do the impeachment this way. It's unconstitutional. They knew it at that point. But that was the beginning. And so now impeachment is a worthless political exercise because it's been perverted by the Democrats. Now what do we get? Now we have the criminal justice system. We all know Alan Bragg's charging of Trump for business fraud is one of the most bogus, absolutely most bogus charges ever brought up. We all know that. But impeachment didn't work for the Democrats, so now it's weaponization of law enforcement. And we did see the weaponization of law enforcement, in 2016, 2017 with what the FBI was doing. Remember, the FBI knew. The FBI knew. They were told by the intelligence agencies that Hillary Clinton was going to attempt to set up Trump. They knew that, and they went along with it anyway and never questioned it. That's the way. If you want to know what the weaponization of law enforcement is, it's right there. And what's also the weaponization? Where you do not hand out justice equally. You let one side get away with anything, and the other side, you don't. And the American public looks at that and goes, this is just completely and totally bogus. But yesterday, that coming out with Burisma, if there was any, and this really isn't talked about a lot. This totally blows out of the water impeachment 1. Completely. Impeachment 1 is done. Because there was totally legitimate reason. The other thing is, and maybe somebody's talked about it again. I just when I was going to sleep is when I found out about the Burisma thing. When I woke up is when I found out about the indictment thing, and so still scrambling to read as much during the breaks as I possibly can on this. But maybe somebody brought it up, but this totally shows that impeachment 1 was bogus. Because there were legit reasons. The FBI, when Trump was being impeached the first time, the FBI knew that they had a source that said Biden had taken a bribe. That never came. That would have blown it. That would have defeated impeachment number 1, blown it right out of the water if that document had come up at that point. And they were actively investigating it. Because remember, this is now 2017, now a 6-year investigation. Well, maybe it was a 6-year investigation. The document's been sitting there. Was the FBI really attempting to investigate it, or did they think that that would never come public and they would never have to address the fact that they weren't investigating it? I guess we shall see at that point. More coming up. 866-90 Red Eye.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1. Concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2. More revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company. But there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3. All you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4. You can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. Let's hear from Representative Byron Donalds of Florida after he viewed the FBI document alleging a bribery scheme from Biden, which says the bribe came from a Burisma energy official.
This document also stipulates that, according to the confidential human source, that money was being moved through several accounts, multiple accounts, to get to Joe Biden. I'm going to say it again. Money was moved on purpose through multiple accounts to get to Joe Biden. This document also...
Okay, sorry, it was repeating again. This is really interesting because Fox has a source story, and I wonder who their sources are. Because, are the sources people from the House Oversight Committee? I mean, this isn't a classified document. They already said it's Burisma, so they could do it. So who are these sources giving this additional information? President Joe Biden was allegedly paid $5 million by an executive of a Ukrainian natural gas firm, Burisma Holdings, where his son Hunter sat on the board. A confidential human source told the FBI during a June 2020 interview. Sources familiar told Fox News Digital. The sources briefed Fox News Digital on the contents of the FBI-generated FD-23 form, alleging a criminal bribery scheme between then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national that involved influence over U.S. policy decisions. The form, dated June 30th, 2020, is the FBI's interview with a highly credible confidential source who detailed multiple meetings and conversations he or she had with the top Burisma executive over the course of several years, starting in 2015. Fox News Digital has not seen the form, but it was described by several sources who are aware of the contents. This form is used by the FBI agents to record unverified reporting from confidential human sources. The form is used to document information as told to an FBI agent, but recording the information does not validate or weigh it against other information known by the FBI. The Burisma executive sought the advice of the confidential source, a business professional, on gaining U.S. oil rights and getting involved with a U.S. oil company. The sources familiar with the document said the Burisma executive was speaking with the confidential source to get advice on the best way to go forward in 2015 and 2016. According to the form, the confidential human source said the Burisma executive discussed Hunter's role on the board. The confidential human source questioned why the Burisma executive needed his or her advice on acquiring access to U.S. oil if he had Hunter Biden on the board. The Burisma executive answered by referring to Hunter as dumb. The Burisma executive explained to the confidential source that Burisma had to pay the Bidens because Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin was investigating Burisma and explained how difficult it would be to enter the U.S. market in the midst of that investigation. The confidential source further detailed that conversation, suggesting to the Burisma executive that he pay the Bidens $50,000 each, to which the Burisma executive replied, it's not $50,000, it's $5 million. More to come.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley. He has the morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I don't. I'm here. Well, actually, he's working. just not in studio. Help marketing the show and doing a bunch of different stuff like that. And so he'll be back for Sunday night, Monday morning show. So because now information's starting to pour out about what's in this document. The Joe Biden bribery document. And it's really bad. It keeps getting worse for Biden. But where we were was the Burisma executive, because now we know it's Burisma. The Burisma executive sought advice of the confidential source that the FBI had been using for a significant period of time. Highly credible source. The Burisma executive sought the advice of the confidential source, who is a business professional, on gaining U.S. oil rights and getting involved with a U.S. oil company. The sources familiar with the document said, this is a source story from Fox News Digital, the Burisma executive was speaking with the confidential source to get advice on the best way to go forward in 2015 and 2016. According to the form, the confidential human source said the Burisma executive discussed Hunter's role on the board. The confidential human source questioned why the Burisma executive needed his or her advice on acquiring access to the United States oil if he had Hunter Biden on the board of directors. The Burisma executive answered by referring to Hunter Biden as dumb. The Burisma executive explained to the confidential source that Burisma had to pay the Bidens because the Ukrainian prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was investigating Burisma, and explained how difficult it would be to enter the U.S. market in the midst of that investigation. So the Burisma executive told the confidential source that Burisma had to pay the Bidens. That's in quote, by the way, had to pay the Bidens. Because the Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating Burisma and explained how difficult it would be to enter the U.S. market in the midst of that investigation. You see where this is going? Remember Biden bragging, I got the prosecutor fired. Whoa, man. The confidential source further detailed that conversation, suggesting to the Burisma executive that he pay the Bidens $50,000 each, to which the Burisma executive replied, it's not $50,000, it's $5 million. $5 million for one Biden, $5 million for the other Biden, the Burisma executive told the confidential human source, according to a source familiar with the document. The source familiar said, according to the document, the $5 million payments appeared to reference a kind of retainer Burisma intended to pay the Bidens to deal with a number of issues, including the investigation by Shokin. Another source referred to the arrangement as a pay-to-play scheme. Sources familiar told Fox News Digital that the confidential human source believes that the $5 million payment to Joe Biden and the $5 million payment to Hunter Biden occurred based on his or her conversations with the Burisma executive. The confidential source said the Burisma executive told him he paid the Bidens in such a manner through so many different bank accounts that investigators would not be able to unravel this for at least 10 years. The document then makes reference to the big guy, which has been said to be a reference to Joe Biden. The Burisma executive told the confidential source that he did not pay the big guy directly. Fox News Digital learned that the confidential human source has been used by the FBI as a regular, reliable source of information since 2010 and has been paid approximately $200,000 by the FBI to be an informant. Sources say the Burisma executive appears to be at a very, very high level of the company. One source familiar suggested the confidential source could be referring to the head of Burisma, but said the name of the Burisma executive is redacted in the document, so they know who it is. Biden has acknowledged that when he was vice president, he successfully pressured Ukraine to fire the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. By the way, this is what impeachment number 1 of Trump was all about. At the time, Shokin was investigating Burisma Holdings, and at the time, Hunter had a highly lucrative role on the board, receiving thousands of dollars per month. The then vice president threatened to withhold $1 billion of critical U.S. aid if Shokin was not fired. Biden said, quote, and this is what I was referring to earlier, I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here in, I think, about 6 hours. I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If that prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting any money, Biden recalled telling then Ukrainian President Poroshenko. Biden recollected the conversation during an event for the Council of Foreign Relations in 2018. Well, SOB, he got fired, Biden said during the event, and they put in place someone who was solid at that time. Biden allies maintained the then vice president pushed for Shokin's firing due to concerns the Ukrainian prosecutor went easy on corruption. Oh. And say his firing at the time was the policy position of the U.S. and in the international community. In 2019, then President Trump pressed Ukrainian President Zelensky to launch an investigation into the Biden's family actions and business dealings in Ukraine, specifically Hunter Biden's ventures with Burisma Holdings and Joe Biden's successful effort to have Shokin ousted. Trump's request was regarded by the Democrats as a quid pro quo for millions of U.S. military aid to Ukraine. Democrats also claimed Trump was meddling in the 2020 presidential election. That was what impeachment 1 was all about. And at the time, in 2019, the FBI knew at that point what was going on. Remember, the form was updated in 2020, but as Comer and others have said, this investigation has been going on since 2017. The confidential source, according to sources familiar with the form, told the Burisma executive he should get away from the Bidens and said the executive should not want to be involved with them. A source familiar with the document told Fox News that the confidential human source goes on to detail a later conversation with the Burisma executive following the 2016 presidential election. The confidential source asked the Burisma executive if he was upset that Donald Trump won. The source said the Burisma executive told the confidential source that he was an oracle, referring to his or her advice to get away from the Bidens due to fears of potential investigations into their dealings. The House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed the FBI for the document after back and forth between the committee and the Bureau amid threats of holding FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. The FBI allowed all committee members to view the document in the secure Capitol Hill. So there's where we are right now. The White House has maintained that President Biden never has been involved or never has discussed any business dealings with Hunter Biden. Now, we know that is a lie. And we know that's a lie because of the voicemail that Biden left his son, which was on the laptop, and also emails that Biden has had exchanged with Hunter and others. So we know that's a lie. So that's where we are. You know, it's the specifics of it that will be reported here that will be damning, because there's nothing. You know, the other day when you had Jamie Raskin come out and say, well, no. Bill Barr stopped the investigation into this. They saw nothing. And then Bill Barr came out the next day and said, nope, that's not true. I was reading Molly Hemingway in thefederalist.com, and she said, oh, he's replaced Adam Schiff, because that was a lie. He was still sticking with it the other day. No, I'm sticking with that. But it's a lie. And you look at it, the Democratic Party right now is at, you think there are maybe Republicans looking at the the Trump indictments and saying, no, this isn't good for us. Democrats are scared. Well, you know the next word. They are scared a lot. They are scared number two. They are, because they look at this and they go, we've got Harris, and this is and people talk about things hanging over Trump. The difference is people will now look at they look at the Russia collusion. They know it was false. They know Hillary Clinton did it. And they know on classified documents, they know they know what happens in presidential administrations. And they know what, they look at Biden and his handling of classified documents, Hillary Clinton and what she did, and they weren't presidents and they can't make the claim we attempted to declassify it or we declassified it or whatever. And so people already look at it, not Democrats, but independents, and that's what you need to win. Significant portion of independents look at it and go, all right, even those that may say, I don't like Trump, but yeah, he was set up. And there is a weaponization going on. Not just there, but people look at it, the censoring of the Hunter Biden story, the media cooperating with it. And just in general, the weaponization of law enforcement and the government to go after people for free speech issues. And so it's a huge problem. And it was funny because when I saw that Gavin Newsom came out and started talking about we need to replace the Second Amendment or update the Second Amendment with the new 28th Amendment, it's like, oh, man, here we go. And I'm like, he must be running. Then I heard he was on Fox News yesterday. And when I heard that, I went, oh, he's running again in his mind. It's time to consider running again because everything's going down the creek with Biden right now. And there hasn't been anything on this that has gone the Democrats or Biden's way. It's always been in one direction, making Biden look more guilty and more guilty. And the worst part of it is the polling, even before all of this, the last week, shows the majority of Americans believe that Biden committed illegal influence peddling. The majority of Americans believe that. The majority of registered voters believe that now. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's back Sunday night, Monday morning with me. Want to play this? This RNC put this together. It was Biden being asked about selling out the country yesterday. What do you have to say with your critics saying you sold out the country with the news coming up? And he said, "Where's the money?" And it's interesting because this is what the RNC put together. The first part is Biden answering the question. Here we go.
The bribery allegation, Congresswoman Nancy Mace says there's damning evidence in the FBI file that you sold out the country. Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money?
The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies.
It's going to be a problem because, see, that's why they don't want him out there. He says, "Where's the money?" And expect that tomorrow you're going to hear the Republicans pounding on that. Where's the money? Really? We've got the bank documents. Tell us what business you're in. This has only been going in one direction since the Biden laptop story in 2020. Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning's show. Now, it's a Friday show. Got to clear the desk. We got a bunch of different stories that we want to make sure we get to, but covering the two big stories of the day, the upcoming Trump indictments and the Biden bribe document yesterday, which, by the way, is not $5 million, $10 million is what it actually is, because the allegation is $10 million, $5 million to Biden and $5 million to Hunter Biden is the allegation in there. And, they know who the confidential human source is, and they also know who the Burisma executive was. And it's just, this is a fascinating story. Take away the politics. I mean, the politics of it, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It's just a story in itself. And I look at the fact and say, this confidential human informant, again, totally reliable. The FBI had paid him since 2010 over $200,000 to be an informant. He's a business person. And and that's one of the things you talk about. Well, okay, so he's been used before, but this person must be pretty well known in business circles, because his claim is the Burisma executive came to him. It's not as if he was out there, okay, I'm an informant for the FBI. Let me go find somebody out there that I can, learn some information from and sell it to the FBI. This Burisma executive, according to the document, came to him. And remember, I'm assuming if you're a confidential human informant, you still can't lie to the FBI. So we know all the names that are involved in it here. This is going to be fascinating. James Comer was on Fox News last night, was on with Sean Hannity. Here's part of what he had to say.
Well, I can tell you that the FBI has had this since 2017. This particular 1023 that I was able to grant access for my entire committee today, it's dated June 30th of 2020. But what you go back through the document and there are footnotes that reference 2 prior years. So they were communicating with this paid informant for years. And according to the FBI, this is one of their most highest paid, most respected, most trusted, most effective human informants. So what we learned is what the whistleblowers told Senator Grassley all along. The FBI never investigated this. But we did learn that Attorney General Barr, when he received this particular 1023 that was up for viewing today for the House Oversight Committee, he passed it along to the U.S. Attorney in Delaware who was investigating Hunter Biden. And remember, this 1023 didn't just implicate Joe Biden, it also implicated his son. So what's interesting to me when I read the document was the fact that this was years before our work on the Oversight Committee brought out the fact that the Biden family were using multiple banks and multiple shell companies to launder money from foreign nationals. No one knew about this back in 2020. This has only become a revelation since our committee has brought it to light in the last few months. So no one knew about these shell companies, but it specifically says by their trusted human informant that the payor of these bribes bragged that the way Biden wanted the money distributed, it would be through so many banks that it would take investigators 10 years to track the money. And I can tell you, Sean, it's taken us a long time to track the money, but we are tracking the money. We're finding money from China. We found money from Romania, and we will find this money from Ukraine.
Wow. One thing that he said there, which was new, he said the FBI was never investigated this, really, until Barr came along. So this thing was sitting there. They knew it was there. The FBI knew it was there when impeachment happened of Donald Trump. They knew it was there. This document comes out in 2019. Impeachment 1 falls apart completely. You know, it was interesting that when the Republicans took the House, there was talk that they might rescind the 2 impeachments, vote to rescind the 2 impeachments. Right now, it would be well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know to rescind an impeachment how many votes you need, whether it's a majority or whatever. But right now, wow. Impeachment 1 doesn't happen if the FBI and people in the FBI knew this document existed and had to know that if it came out during impeachment 1, it would have blown impeachment 1 right out of the water. But Comer is saying the FBI never investigated it until Barr came along. And the interesting thing is, Jamie Raskin, who lied to the American public the other day and said that, and this is the thing, I mean, they're so desperate that, because I always look at it and I know Biden doesn't care about lies. You know, I know he doesn't care. I mean, he's a pathological liar. He doesn't care. By the way, did you see yesterday he said, "I'm honest." It's like, he actually said that yesterday. I'm honest. But when you impeachment number 1 would have not happened. But when Raskin came out and said that Bill Barr stopped the investigation, they ended the investigation because there's nothing there, it was an absolute lie. And Barr came out immediately within hours and said that's not true. No, he said that the congressional representative must be awfully confused because that's not what happened. It was very diplomatic. No, as Molly Hemingway in the Federalist.com put it, Jamie Raskin has become the new Adam Schiff. You lie. And when he was questioned about it again, he stood by it and said it again. No, from my information, they stopped it. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter what your information is. The guy who actually continued the investigation and sent it to the federal attorney to investigate it more is William Barr. And the thing is, you know what's really interesting here in any scandal, and I've been in radio long enough and followed, scandals long enough, you always have, if Comer was on, you would have a Democrat saying, this is completely ridiculous. You notice you really can't fight. You had Raskin the other day because he looked at the document and that lie was blown out of the water within hours. But everybody's quiet. They just don't cover the story. That's how you know there's a huge problem. When they're not out there screaming and yelling and saying, this isn't true. Let's hear more of this back and forth between James Comer and Sean Hannity on Fox News last night.
So you believe there's a total of $10 million involved in all of this, and this has been ongoing since 2017, and the FBI's had this the whole time, and they've never done a full investigation into this?
That's what it appears to be. Now, what Attorney General Barr said, he passed it along to the U.S. Attorney in Delaware. My theory, Sean, is that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware had never even really paid attention to this until the last 2 weeks. Now, according to the FBI, when I had that private briefing with Jamie Raskins, who had to feel uncomfortable sitting in there listening to all of that information that we were receiving from the FBI, considering he led an impeachment of Donald Trump for simply asking about corruption in Ukraine. The FBI is talking about all these credible accusations they have with respect to corruption in Ukraine from the Biden family. We believe that these banks will show that they were that the money was laundered through shell companies, more shell companies. So we're going to continue to try to subpoena the banks.
Congressman,
we're looking for more shell companies. We'll find it. Yes.
All right. Americans now watched Hillary Clinton with top secret classified information on her servers, but no prosecutor would prosecute. They watched, quote, obstruction by the deletion of 33,000 subpoenaed emails and the destruction of devices that might have had some of that information on them. Nobody seemed to get, upset or in any way, shape, manner, or form. Now you've got 4 separate locations, top secret classified information with Joe Biden. Okay, they raid Mar-a-Lago. They didn't raid Chappaqua. They didn't raid Delaware. They didn't raid UPenn. They didn't raid the beach house. But it's Donald Trump that has Mar-a-Lago raided and Donald Trump that gets charged for what seems like the exact same allegations. Do you see much difference?
No. Look, Joe Biden has mishandled classified documents in a much more severe manner than Donald Trump ever mishandled classified documents. What we've learned about this form 1023, again, the FBI never investigated it, but this is a pattern of the FBI not investigating anything with respect to Biden. Look at what they had with the Steele dossier, which was no credible source, compared to what they have with this 1023.
Okay, they're getting all over the place here. The thing is important because when he asked, he said, do you see any difference? And Comer said no. Well, yeah, there is a difference. We know that the intent of Hillary Clinton and what she did, the intent was to break the law and avoid the Freedom of Information Act. So there is a difference between what she did and what Trump did. And the other thing that Comer brought up before, and we'll see if he brings it up here, I'm listening to this for the first time because it just came out about an hour ago that it was posted, and I didn't see it live. But Comer is the one who said that one of the top secret documents that was found at the house dealt with Ukraine and dealt with, possible money. And he feels that the one document that was separate outside a file that was where Hunter Biden was renting from his father was on Ukraine. And so that would make a total difference if that relates to all of this, which is going on. Let's hear more of this.
On Joe Biden from their most trusted, credible source. And then, Sean, I want you to think about this. Two things. First of all, they wouldn't even admit that this document existed until Senator Grassley and I told Christopher Wray that we had already read the document from the whistleblower. So then, once I got to view the document, it was apparent there were more documents. Then, as early as Monday, when they gave me the briefing for 90 minutes, the FBI tried to say there were no more documents. When we were negotiating last night on postponing this motion to hold them in contempt, they finally admitted there are more 1023s on Biden and bribery, and they're going to let me see those now. So we're making progress with the FBI. The FBI clearly has treated Joe Biden very differently than they're treating Donald Trump. But thankfully for the American people, the House Oversight Committee is on top of this. We're uncovering the banks. We're uncovering the shell companies. These are things that we will continue to push forward on.
Based on all these LLCs that you keep describing and the amount of money that's being shifted around here, there, and everywhere, and the number of countries that you've identified that the Biden family was doing business with, and you're right about the Ukraine issue, because Joe bragged about leveraging $1 billion, demanding a prosecutor be fired in 6 hours. Prosecutor turns out to be investigating his son and the company paying him a fortune, Burisma, the Burisma energy giant. So at the end of the day, my question to you, do you have any earthly idea how many millions of dollars we might be talking about between Hunter and Devin Archer and Joe Biden and the 9 family members that you say ultimately got payments as well, and including apparently grandkids? They must be very smart if they're getting some of the money as well.
Well, it's consistent with organized crime. You've got racketeering, you've got money laundering, you've got bribery. But I would estimate, Sean, that we've already uncovered 10 million. I would say that number could top out at 20 million plus.
Wow. So there you go. And that's more information we've gotten from Comer in a while. And we wanted, Eric and I wanted it Monday and Tuesday to explain more of what's going on. And now they seem to be explaining more of what's going on. And now there are source stories coming out. And I just wonder when the Democrats will start turning on Biden and say, look, we can't win this. This thing keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You know, it was $5 million. Now it's $10 million that Burisma paid. And again, that destroys. Comer said it. There's Jamie Raskin, who led the impeachment of Trump, the first impeachment, sitting there hearing that, no, Trump was actually right. There was a legit reason to investigate the Bidens when it came to Ukraine. Trump was impeached for that. And Eric and I have always wondered, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, we've always wondered, did they do this because they knew that Trump, by doing this, was getting too close to the actual truth of what was going on? That's always sat in the back of our minds, because it seems like this is what you're impeaching him for? Why you do, this? And you look back, well, was the motive not just to get Trump, but was the motive to hide what was going on with Biden? 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric returns on Sunday night, Monday morning. I can't wait, because when we don't work together for a couple of days, I mean, it is quite a gab fest, and I'm sure that will be the case on Sunday night, Monday morning. It may take us a week just to discuss between ourselves everything that has happened. I'll say one thing. When Comer came out and said that they had come to a deal where all the House Oversight Committee could look at the document even in the top secret room, I wondered, why, really? I thought you wanted the document. I now realized from what he just said there what's going on. As he said, the FBI never wanted to acknowledge that this thing even existed until they told him, we've read it. We know it exists. Then he said, okay, it exists, and let's negotiate the terms of you looking at it. But what Comer said is, in their discussion, their negotiations, I think they came to the agreement that, okay, we already know what's in it. We want the whole oversight committee to look at it. And the FBI admitted, as he said, they have additional documents that also exist that Comer is going to look at. And I went, oh, okay, that's what the negotiation was about. It's like, oh, okay, well, we already know what's in the document. We've already read it from the whistleblower. We just want the whole oversight committee to look at it. And so they get a look at it. And, they were commenting on it yesterday. Republicans, I didn't see Democrats really commenting on it. Republicans were. And there's more documents to come, is what Comer has said from the FBI. It's really incredible because when you think about this, that during the impeachment, the first impeachment of Trump, the FBI had this document. In 2019, they had. They might have not had this document, which came out in June of 2020, but it referenced this was an update of the investigation, which had started in 2017. So they knew in 2017 what the confidential human source had told them about Burisma and the payments and everything else, because that was a conversation that was done a while back. So the FBI knew about it, never said a word. That document would have stopped in its tracks the first impeachment. It would have been so incredibly damaging at that point to Biden.
Hi, I'm Eric Harley. Join me today through Saturday, June 10th, for the 41st annual Shell Rotella Super Rigs at Camplex in Gillette, Wyoming. All the details are at redeyeradioshow.com.
See, that's where Eric is. Yeah, so he'll be back Sunday night, Monday morning. Let me just look very quickly here, because a couple of topics we want to hit that we didn't get a chance to so far this week, but I was just looking for, where was it here? Somebody was asking a question somewhere, and I want to see if I can find it here. Let me just see here. Okay, somebody had a question out there, and I was trying to find it and don't know where it went. Well, okay. We'll we'll get to that a little bit later on. I don't want to be sitting here going in the middle of the morning. How's everybody doing, huh? It's Friday. Week from Father's Day weekend. Yeah, I'll be heading just for a day and a half. I'll be heading next week out to see Dad for a week and a half. He's doing great. Just a lot of people asked because I'd mentioned, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago when he was in the hospital. He's doing great. He's doing absolutely great. The thing with my dad, he's got bad stenosis of the back. His mind is great, but he's been in pain for the last couple of years, big time, because of that. And, he went to a couple of places and it didn't work. And he ended up having to go into the hospital about 3 weeks ago because the stress was affecting his, the pain and everything else affecting his blood pressure. So the best thing is, after he went in, when he went in, there were other, pain management centers that came forward. He's now doing physical therapy. And for the last 3 years, I used to talk to my mom all the time. My dad would be, when my mom was done, if he was around, whatever, but he was usually busy. But since my mom passed away 3 years ago, until a couple of weeks ago, well, every single day, Well, probably 19 out of 20 times, 20 days in a row, I would talk to my dad, and the one time he might be gone. But the last couple of weeks, he's always at physical therapy. He's always at the pain management center, and he's doing great. And from what I get, the pain is going away a little bit, but they say it's going to go away with everything that's being done from the pain management center. And it's actually non-drug kind of stuff. My dad's not good on any type of opiate, and he just won't do it. But the constant pain, and it never ends, it can affect your mood. I'm amazed what a good mood he has been in over the last couple of years with the pain that he's been dealing with. And so he's doing great. His mind is great. We did talk yesterday, and we talked the day before. I don't know if I'm trying to think I can talk to him today for a little bit before he's getting more physical therapy. But, 97, it's just amazing. 97. I want to make it clear. If I'm alive at 97, I'm going to guess I'm not going to be doing the show. I might retire. So we've got a few decades left on that one. 866-90 Red Eye. If you would like to get in, we go to Bill in L.A. Bill, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Gary. Excuse me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I wish you were correct that this bombshell information would have an effect to stop Biden. But if you put yourself in his position, he's got no fear of being removed by the Senate, even if he's impeached. And if they turn on him, they're admitting that all the scandals of the last 8 years have been true and could be blamed on the Democrats. I think the Democrats have no choice but to stonewall. You got the media on their side. They're going to stick with it.
Well, I never said that the Senate would remove him or he would be impeached. It would be, if he decides to bow out, it would be the pressure that he is receiving and the family pressure. I don't know if Republicans, there could come to a point where Republicans say, the evidence is so crystal clear that the bribe exists, and here's the money trail, and the FBI then says, yes, we have this money trail there. I don't believe that will happen by that point or by the point of the election, but I do believe that if that did happen, the Republicans probably would be forced to impeach him if the FBI said, no, the evidence is there. If his own FBI and Department of Justice says the evidence is there, we can't charge him because he's president of the United States. But the fact is, it's sort of like Nixon. When they found out obstruction of justice was coming after him, he resigned before he was impeached. But at that point, he might be impeached. And then if it was his own Department of Justice stating that, yeah, the evidence is there, he broke the law, here's the electronic transfers to Biden's account, here's the money of how he used it, the Senate would vote to impeach at that point. Remove from office. And I think at that point, if it was that type of criminal activity, $10 million in bribes, he would be gone. But we're not going to get to that point, before the election. But no, I mean, I just they want. What I'm saying is they want him gone. He may not go. They want him gone. And I do think that, in the back of my mind, with Newsom ramping it up again with the 28th Amendment and going on Fox News, I'm like, oh, okay. Is he thinking of running again? In his mind, is he running again? Because the thought process, where it goes, I don't know. I don't have a prediction as to where it goes. I don't know because I don't know what evidence is going to come out. What I'm saying is the Democrats are scared to death of this because the one thing, well, actually, there's two things that people are still against in this country. One is influence peddling, illegal or legal. And when you look at the polling out there, 63% believe that Hunter Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling, and 53%, and this is a couple of weeks ago, believe that Joe Biden was involved in illegal influence peddling. Now, the interesting thing is The 63% actually know that it applies to Biden because you can't influence peddle the son. The son's attempting to do it from the father. So unless they believe, well, Biden is too stupid to know that his son is using him, and so we only believe that Hunter should be responsible, at that point, you know that you're just a step away. So you're closing in on 2/3 of Americans that believe that illegal activity has been going on in the Biden family. The other thing that the citizens of this country don't like are politicians that don't pay their taxes. And if you're involved in illegal influence peddling, you may not have paid your taxes, so it could be a double whammy. And that's the fear of the Democrats right there. And then you went on top of that, not just influence peddling, but the illegal influence peddling is bribery. You took money you took money and then used your influence to change U.S. public policy. The American public doesn't want that. But no, will he be impeached? I wouldn't suggest the way this is going that Republicans impeach him now. But if you get to the point where the Department of Justice and the FBI actually does their job, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen at all from what we have seen, or do any type of serious investigation on the Biden family, the corrupt Biden family, because influence peddling is under the definition, whether legal or illegal, of corruption. Don't talk to me. Talk to constitutional expert Jonathan Turley, who is a Democrat, who has stated that on a consistent basis. It is corruption. But unless it gets to illegal, if it gets to the bribe part of it and they can prove the bribe, Republicans at that point would probably feel forced to do it. And then the FBI is saying, we have the evidence that the Biden took a bribe. And the first impeachment was completely bogus. Completely bogus. Biden took the bribe and he committed a criminal act. And once he steps down, he will be charged. If the Senate doesn't impeach him, boy, let's say this happened before 2024. I would bet you that the swing districts, the contests that are going to be close, where Republicans have an advantage over the Democrat incumbent right now, I have a feeling every one of those Democrats would vote to remove from office. So, but again, I don't think we're going to get to that point that quickly. You never know, though. All right, we've got some polling here. More Americans this year, 38% say they are very conservative or conservative on social issues than said so in 2022 when it was 33% and 2021 when it was 30%. At the same time, the percentage saying their social views are very liberal or liberal has dipped to 29% from 34% in each of the past 2 years. While the portion identified as moderate, I don't know, whatever, remains near a third. The last time this many Americans said that they were socially conservative was 2012, during a period when consistently more U.S. adults identified as conservative rather than liberal on social issues. The results are based on Gallup's annual Values and Beliefs Survey conducted in May. The survey comes at a time when many states are considering policies regarding transgender matters, abortion, crime, drug use, and the teaching of gender and sexuality in schools. You can add into that critical race theory. And that's the big problem they're having is crime, critical race theory, the liberal radical transgender activist movement. That's what it is. And it's being highlighted every single day. Now, when I first saw the survey yesterday, it said Americans are more conservative. Well, they may think they're more conservative, but then it said social issues, and I could believe that. On fiscal issues and other matters, non-social issues, I wonder if we're more conservative. There are more conservatives than there were back a few decades ago. But they did not look at that. Since 2021, there has been double-digit increases in conservative social ideology among middle-aged adults, those between the ages of 30 and 64. Whoa. At the same time, older Americans' ideology on social issues have been stable. Yeah, you ain't going to change us. We're old. I have seen on Twitter and Facebook the gray pride. What does it say? We're old, we're stubborn, get off our lawn. Gray pride. I love that. The increase in conservative identification on social issues over the past 2 years is seen among nearly all political and demographic subgroups. Republicans show the largest increases. Independents show a modest uptick of 5 percentage points. There has been no change among Democrats in both 2021 and 2023. So what you're trying to do is move the independents over. There you go. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here, he's not. He'll be back Sunday night, Monday morning. Coming up following the top of the hour, Hollywood actress says, I'm no longer a Democrat, and then goes on to endorse a liberal Democrat. We'll get to that story coming up. Plus, one of my favorite stories is you see we're New York City now, Adams in New York City, suing, I think over half of the counties in New York for not taking migrants. Calling them, let me just see what the quote is here. New York City sues 30 counties in New York State for refusing to accept migrants. Xenophobic bigotry. Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Adams is the one that says, I need a judge. I need a judge to come out and state that we need to stop being a sanctuary city. What are you talking about, you xenophobe? You're the one that said, New York City said, come here. We want you to come here. Fulfill your responsibility and your promise. These counties are coming out saying, we're not sanctuary places. We never said we were sanctuary places. You're the sanctuary place. You deal with it. That seems to be the argument coming from the right, which is, by the way, a quite effective argument.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we're Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Good morning. Thank you for being here. All right, looking at some of the headlines. From the movie Clueless, Alicia Silverstone says she is no longer a Democrat. She is disappointed with the political leadership, so she is endorsing a liberal Democrat, RFK Jr. Clueless. Sorry, but I laughed at that one. All right, from the liberal, activist, radical transgender movement, Bud Light is no longer America's top-selling beer. Modelo is special. surpassed Bud Light as the nation's #1 beer at the end of May, according to data obtained by Newsweek. Modelo sales reached $333 million for the 4 weeks ending May 28th, compared to Bud Light, $297 million. Now, the Mexican brand sales hit roughly $341 million in the week ending May 25th or 27th. Boy, we drink a lot of beer, huh? Compared with approximately $298 million for Bud Light. Bud Light parent company, Anheuser-Busch, owns Modelo's international operations, but rival beverage conglomerate Constellation Brands separates its U.S. division as a result of a 2013 antitrust settlement by the Department of Justice. So they own the international operations, Bud Light does, but not the domestic operations. So no surprise there. What was the other? I had something else on the liberal transgender activist movement out there. Okay. There's something else. Oh, I can't remember what it was. Yeah, we'll see what happens to Target. Was it Target or Bud Light? Was it Bud Light that said they're going to be there? I can't remember if it was Target or Bud Light. There's some drag show that they were still promoting. I saw that story the other day. So, was it Bud Light? Okay, it was Bud Light. I know I did the story the other day. I just can't remember. That just popped into my mind right now. So, yeah, that's still really, really amazing. It is amazing how quickly that happened. I didn't see that coming. And you're talking about a couple of people here that have been talking about the radical transgender activist movement and what would happen in society if they succeeded and everything that we said was going to happen ended up happening. Oh, here's the story I want. Okay, I knew I had it. I had the story actually right here. A University of Cincinnati student who allegedly received a 0 on a college project proposal for using the term biological woman has had her proposal regraded by another professor and received an A. Olivia Krutzik posted a TikTok video last month detailing the feedback she received from her gender studies teacher. Man, I'm telling you, I would never make it through college. I would be kicked out. I wouldn't be able to make it through college. I had to take some electives. I remember I had to take Chinese history. And in my senior year, I don't believe they had a gender studies program in my college at that time. Oh, I'm sure they do now. But back then, no. The last class I had to pass, I'm not kidding, to complete college was an elective course, and it was arts and crafts. And I was scared I wasn't going, and we took it pass-fail, myself and my buddy Nick. I'll never forget, I forgot what we did. But we sort of took that course as a joke, but I have no artistic ability at all, and neither did my buddy Nick. And Nick ended up having a great career, retired recently, great career managing TV stations across the country. I mean, just a stellar career. And we were both sort of the same in a way. We were different, but we were the same in the fact that we wanted to get out of school as soon as possible and get into the real world. I wish that in some of the courses that I took, for example, geology and things like that, I wish I would have had more interest in it, but my mind was just get out of school and get into the real world. And looking back now, I wish I had, on some of the topics, I had paid more attention to it instead of doing, the minimum just to get out. Now, I cared about passing college because I was paying for it. But I still, even when I get into it, it was like almost as if when I realized really it was after into my third year and going into my fourth, I went, okay, how valuable is this? Well, I need that diploma. I need that piece of paper. And you want to know something? I have never needed to ever present my diploma for any job I ever had from college. Ever. Never had to do it. I'm glad I went. Because when people ask me, what did you get out of college? Time management. Because I worked 2 jobs and went to college full time. And I worked 35 hours a week at the bank and another 18 hours a week as a club DJ. So I was working over 50 hours and going to college full time. And doing the morning show at the college radio station. And that's where, who was it? We did the story a couple of weeks ago. A guy who would come out who was like an advisor of, what you should do in your career said in your 20s, you should never be home. And I wasn't. All I did was sleep. But the arts and crafts class? Yeah. I'll never forget Nick. Whatever our first project is, and he presents to the teacher, and she said, "What are you, a third grader?" I'll never forget that line. And Nick looks at her with a serious look on his face and says, "Really? You think it's that good?" We both passed, though. We took it pass fail, and I was able to get out of college at that point. But this woman posted a TikTok video last month detailing the feedback she received from her gender studies teacher, explaining that she received a 0 on her project proposal about transgender athletes competing in women's sports because she used the term biological women. Well, wait a minute. How do you argue that if you don't use the term biological woman? It's impossible. Because if your proposal is talking about transgender athletes competing in women's sports, you can only have one opinion. Only the other opinion would use a difference between biological males and biological females. Oh, I get it now. So far, a new professor has graded my work, and nothing has happened with the original professor that I know of. It was regraded, so I ended up finishing the class with an A. In the May video posted on TikTok, she shared the feedback she received from the professor on her proposal, who asked her to reassess her topic. "Olivia, this is a solid proposal," the feedback read. "However, the terms biological women are exclusionary and are not allowed in this course as they further reinforce the heteronormativity? The heteronormativity. Okay, it's a new word for me. I'm sorry. The heteronormativity. Please reassess your topic and edit it to focus on women's rights, not just females, and I'll regrade it. Please reassess your topic and edit it to focus on women's rights, not just females, and I'll regrade it. Now, that's a professor I would say, could you possibly define the difference between females and women? No, I can't do that. And you asking that question is transphobic to begin with. I'm trying to find out how you define words. Now defining words is phobic? You know something? Everybody in the radical liberal transgender activist movement is definition phobic. They're afraid to define any word. Wow. So there you go. But she got an A. She got an A on it, and that is That's good. So Bud Light now no longer America's top-selling beer. Now, I will admit, as I told you last week or a couple weeks ago when I went golfing afterwards, and I just don't drink beer on the course. I take golf seriously. Well, a beer doesn't help me, but we were done afterwards, and the guy said, "Come on, you didn't have a beer on the course, have one." I said, "Okay." And we got in there, and we started laughing about the fact that, okay, you can't do Bud Light. So I start looking, what else is there? What else is there? What else is there? What else is there? And the bartender at the golf club said, "Oh, we have the Troy Aikman light beer." And she said, "It is really great light beer, like 2.6 carbs." By the way, I'm not attempting to sell it. And you'll know that fact because I'm a Bills fan. So, and I went, "I don't know if I'm allowed to drink that one." Go, "What do you mean?" "I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I don't know. Am I allowed not to drink any beer now? I can't even drink that." And she said, "Try it." And I did. It was it's great beer. It really is. But now, after the whole thing of Troy Aikman with the new girlfriend, am I still allowed? Now, I do have a woman friend who always told me, if Troy Aikman's my ultimate goal. And so I had to inform her yesterday that Troy Aikman has a new girlfriend. I did see a story saying he was divorced from his second wife like 3 years, and nobody knew it. But and so that may be a loophole where I can drink the beer, taking the Buffalo Bills thing out of it. She had mentioned it to me, I don't know, 8 months ago about the Troy Aikman beer. Because everybody I know, we're at that age, everybody we know is looking for anything that's low carb. Okay, I can enjoy something that might be a little bit of could be an immoral temptation if it's low carb. And so she had told me about it way back then. So when I told her about Troy Aikman's, she didn't know about it. I told her about Troy Aikman's apparent new girlfriend, and she went into her, messaging me back with her fake rage. "How dare he do that? I've been waiting all." And so I sent a message back to her, and I said, "I know with your insane, jealous rage there, do I have your approval to still drink the 8 beer?" And she writes back, Took about 5 minutes. I'm waiting. It's like, yeah, okay. But I don't think I've gotten the Buffalo Bills backers international approval yet to drink the 8 beer. But yeah, that's it's interesting, and now I think more people than ever are paying attention constantly. Okay, what can I eat? What can I drink? I mean, because you see the radical left politics is almost into everything now. But I'm still amazed by the response on Bud Light. I really am. And I think because we've really got into the summer season now after Memorial Day, that it has stuck. I think this could be permanent. It's something that could be damaging. And it does show that because it might be, I was reading this the other day, and I'd have to compare it to something else over the last, I don't know, half century. But I did read this may be the most successful boycott in the history of all commercial boycotts. Like, wow, that's interesting. Now, the Target thing, I don't know if that's, I've seen, market cap value, but I haven't seen sales for Target, whether it has affected Target or not. But Bud Light, yeah. And that shocked me. And I knew there'd eventually be a pushback. I just didn't think that would be the incident that would cause it. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads. during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and he has the morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here. You know, in that poll I was talking about before that said Americans are more now socially conservative than they have been in the last decade, I did find, I just went into the survey more, and those identifying as economically conservative also hit the highest point since 2012, reaching 44%. Those identifying as moderate, 33%, liberal, 21%. So, are we as economically conservative as we were 30, 40 years ago, or has the definition evolved? Eric and I will tell you, we know people that have called us all the time and says, you know, we had one about 2 months ago called, I'm more conservative than you guys. And it was like, no, you're not. He started throwing out stuff that was absolute liberalism. Now, it might have been a Plant Democrat caller. You get those callers. It's like, no, you're not, but we deal with that all the time. It's like, well, no, you're more of a populist. But I remember when it came to budget battles, 25 years ago, 15 years ago, Republicans were much more passionate about things like the debt than they are today. So I would still question that, the term, more people may relate to the term. Are they actually in real life and how they vote and what they truly believe in as conservative? Well, I'd have to ask people individually on that to find out where they are, but that's where it is. But if you believe you are, what that would indicate is you're more likely to vote Republican, which in this day and age, when you have the Democratic Party on all the major issues that their opinions are insane, that's a good thing.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
Oh, yeah. Here we are. Welcome. You ready for this? All right, a couple of other stories before we get back to the top stories of the day. Got to clean the desk off. It is a Friday. New York City officials are now suing 30 counties across New York State for refusing to accept border crossers and illegal immigrants into their communities. The lawsuit comes after Mayor Eric Adams was shut down when he attempted to bus border crossers, migrants, and illegal immigrants to multiple communities. Since the spring of last year, more than 72,000 border crossers and illegal immigrants have arrived in the sanctuary city of New York City. Adams, as a result, sought to start busing migrants out of the city and to surrounding counties across the state. Last month, a New York judge blocked Adams from busing border crossers and illegal immigrants to Orange County, New York, while another judge blocked him from busing new arrivals to Rockland County. This week, Adams announced the city is suing 30 New York counties, claiming they are exhibiting xenophobic bigotry. Well, so is Adams. By the way, by the Democratic standard. He's the one that said we need to temporarily stop, we need to ban for a while being a sanctuary city. And he was trying to get a judge to do it. It's like, well, wait a minute, the city council passed it. But it's a state of the emergency. Well, you should have thought of that before you just decided to call yourself a sanctuary city. But this week, Adams announced the city is suing 30 New York counties, claiming they are exhibiting xenophobic bigotry for trying to protect their residents from waves of illegal immigration and migrants as they strain public resources, hospital systems, infrastructure, and other problems. You had, let me get it here because I actually went to the local. You had I think it was the county executive from Chautauqua County, because I actually saw this from a local story. My dad had told me about it, a local story in Western New York. Now, where I come from, Buffalo, New York, that's Erie County. But all the counties around it, Niagara, Orleans, Genesee, Wyoming, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua. If you look at where Erie County is, you go to Western New York, and you look at all the counties surrounding it from Lake Ontario all the way down, well, I don't think it goes all the way down to Pennsylvania, but close to Pennsylvania. All those counties are saying, no, we will not take migrants or illegal immigrants. We won't do it. We don't have the ability. They're all rural counties. You know, probably the one that's the least rural would be Niagara County. That's where Niagara Falls is. But for the most part of it, outside of Niagara Falls, it's rural. Like, we don't have the ability to do that. And other county executives have come across and said, we're not sanctuary counties. You're a sanctuary city. And this has really become the argument this week, especially when Gavin Newsom came out and stated that he believes that Ron DeSantis may be kidnapping, that there might be kidnapping charges here, and the DeSantis administration came out with video. They were actually prepared for this. They came out with video of migrants and illegal immigrants, signing the waivers, signing the consent forms that, no, we want to go, and then actually have the migrants saying, oh, can't wait to get to California, can't wait to California. They got a bunch of benefits. They got all these things that we want. And they showed some of the migrants inside of a bus, like cheering and celebrating. They couldn't wait to get to their final destination. And then DeSantis, when asked about it, said, they're the sanctuary cities. They're the sanctuary states. They have put out the welcome mat. They have many more benefits than we have. Our legislature has decided, no, we are not going to be a sanctuary state, or we're not going to have sanctuary cities. And so they have, as a state, they've decided to be a sanctuary. What's wrong with these liberals? They claim to care until they have to care. They virtue signal until they actually have to put it into action, and they say, well, no way. Well, it's going to cost us. Well, you should have thought of that before you said, come here, welcome. All these benefits are for you. And it's the same thing now that these counties in New York State are saying, we didn't agree to this, and you're trying to put the cost on us. And they're saying, well, no, we're going to put them in hotel rooms and pay for the hotel rooms. And he says, well, what if you stop paying? Where's the contract? And then you've got places, I'm sure, like Niagara Falls, which tourism booms in the summertime, saying, wait a minute, you want to fill all of our hotel rooms now with migrants right in the middle of the beginning of the tourist season? And so it's nearly half, they say, of the counties now in New York State. And this is why that Biden's border policies are now more than just a national issue that doesn't affect you. Because, for example, in New York and probably in Illinois, and I don't know what's going on in California, what they're doing, whether they want to move migrants and illegal immigrants to rural, more conservative counties. But the fact is, it's becoming a local issue because the television stations are carrying it. And in fact, that's what my dad, told me about one of the television stations. And I looked, every single television station covering it, every single one. The local TV stations covering it. So now it becomes a local issue. And when you look at it, it was really Governor Abbott and DeSantis that did it. And so, like I said, Newsom coming out earlier in the week and saying kidnapping, you notice how that died down really quick? Because the response was, okay, we'll send you pictures. Here's the process. Here's what we do. And by the way, if we're doing it, is that what Mayor Adams is doing in New York? Is Mayor Adams kidnapping by wanting to send them elsewhere? Is the mayor of El Paso, is he involved in kidnapping because he is giving them the choice of wherever you want to go, you can go? This is an act of desperation, but it does show, it's something that we've talked about for a long time. It shows the absolute hypocrisy of the left. Absolute hypocrisy. And we always give the example, not only here with the sanctuary cities. Well, we want to be a sanctuary city until we have to be a sanctuary. Yeah, we want to be a sanctuary city until we have to give sanctuary. We want to be a sanctuary city until the guy that we all support opened the borders. And now all the red states are saying, well, you said you welcome them. Here they are. Why are you complaining? What's the problem? You said welcome, come here. And as we said, it's the same hypocrisy you see, for example, on health care that we saw, whether it was California, Colorado, Vermont, when they wanted a single-payer system healthcare, a single-payer healthcare system. They only want a single-payer healthcare system if their children and grandchildren will pay for it. They don't want it if they have to pay for it. We saw it happen in those 3 states. Oh, we got to pay for it? Well, we don't want to pay for it. We only want it if it's free. We want to live in the delusional world. Make it free. And across the board, everything from sanctuary cities, they really don't mean it. They live in a delusional world of virtue signaling. But when the real world hits, then they're like, oh, what the hell's going on? We don't want this. And we're going to see the same thing on energy, too. We can run the entire grid on solar and wind. What about when it gets dark and the wind doesn't blow? Well, then we're just going to ask you to cut back on your electricity use. Turn off your air conditioning, because if you care about the planet, you don't need air conditioning. You don't need heating. You don't need lights. You don't actually need to have a car. Someone pointed out the article that we brought up last week about the serious questions about, where the Democrats are going on energy. And it talked about electric vehicles that are basically electric vehicles for the same size car is roughly double the price. 75% of Americans can't afford to do it. So if you move to all electric and Americans can't afford to do it, and they become more expensive because the supply of the materials just isn't there, then what you're doing is ensuring that a majority of Americans can't afford a car, which is actually what their goal is. Remember, Ray LaHood under Obama said it. Our job is to coerce you out of your cars and force you into public transportation, to take away your freedom and ability to move and go where you want, when you want to go, without any problems really solved by doing what you claim you're doing. So that's really interesting what's going on in New York. I find it fascinating. And again, for a blue state, a very blue state, and I know a lot of these county executives are Republicans, but still it's an extremely blue state. And so I guess we call it a blue state circular firing squad going on. But it does make, in a state like New York, it makes every border issue and every border decision from the Biden administration, it now makes it a local issue. And it was Abbott and DeSantis that I think figured that out. We can make it a local issue. We can make it an election issue in these blue states when we say, hey, you're the sanctuary cities. What's the argument against it? Newsom doesn't have an argument. His argument is, you're kidnapping people. No, they're not. That's it. And that gets blown out of the water. What can they do? And the response back to you is, you're a sanctuary state. You want them. You've invited them. You have the benefits for them. They wish to go to your state, and you're saying you don't want them. You're a xenophobe. The argument goes right back to them again. Adams, xenophobe. Newsom, xenophobe. Any Democrat in Chicago now that is against what they voted for before, xenophobe by the Democratic standard. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Hey, it's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. He returns Sunday night, Monday morning. So, yeah, talking about Newsom, he's proposed a 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that would restrict gun ownership, a response to what the governor described as a existential crisis of mass shootings in America. In an interview, Newsom said he personally supports civilian gun ownership, and his proposal would not abolish the Second Amendment. It would, however, raise a minimum age to buy a firearm from 18 to 21, mandate universal background checks, impose a waiting period on gun purchases, and ban civilians from buying assault weapons. So there you go. Not going to happen. But when I saw that yesterday, I said, well, okay, he's starting to run. You're not going to get support to change the Second Amendment in the United States. Not going to happen. Not for a constitutional amendment. The interesting thing is, though, I did read some analysis that said at least he's acknowledging that if you wish to change the Second Amendment, that's the way to do it. You attempt to change the Constitution through the amendment process. But the Second Amendment's pretty clear. So you don't get to say, well, we're just going to pass laws and ignore the Second Amendment and let those laws stay in effect until the Supreme Court overturns them. If you truly believe that the Second Amendment is wrong, go through the constitutional process to do so. The other thing is, though, I did see when he talked about what he would do in the 28th Amendment, the one thing that it said that states would still be able to come up with their own rules. He implied that whatever the federal law was for the Second Amendment, that the states by this amendment would be allowed to have harsher gun control restrictions than the 28th Amendment called for. That's not going to happen. When I saw that, I went, no. I think even putting that out there is unconstitutional. To say that states can give you less rights, that an amendment would be written to say these are your federal rights, but a state can give you less federal rights if it is locally voted on. No, it doesn't work that way.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.